Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are excited to have you here. As you can see, we'll be talking about teaching vocabulary today. We're all glad to have you here. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Sheila Baker, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here today. I live in Toronto, Canada, but sometimes I can also be found in Budapest, Hungary. It's great if you could tell us where you're located, if you could share that in the chat, in the comment section. Please say hi to us and tell us where you are from. We've got people joining us from Pretoria, South Africa. Welcome. Wales, Manchester, the UK. Excellent. Thank you. I've been just a little bit about myself. I've been a teacher for about 120 years or so. It seems like that way. Sometimes actually I've been teaching for about 25 years now, and that includes 5 years of teacher training as well. I've taught students from all over the world, countries like Brazil, Peru, Mexico, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, lots from China, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, Japan, India, Italy, Ukraine, Switzerland, Hungary, Spain, Africa, like Somalia. So you get the picture. All right, so where else do we have people joining us from? Cape Town, South Africa, welcome. New Jersey, oh, Scotland, welcome. More from South Africa, Portugal, Poland, welcome. Dubai and Georgia, awesome. So you can see it's quite an international crowd. Welcome everyone. Iran, nice to have you all here. So let's get started. So teaching vocab. When you see lexis, we're talking about words and phrases. And when it comes to words, you start out with just the words like house. Phrase is two or three words connected, just like in the kitchen would be like a prepositional phrase. Or collocations. Collocations are words that often go together. For example, would you go on a tea break or a coffee break? So you go on a coffee break. So coffee and break go together. Even though you might be drinking tea, those words go together. So if you're in the kitchen, you make the dishes or you do the dishes. You do the dishes. Again, those words go together. In the morning, what do you do with the bed? You do or you make the bed. If you said you make the bed, you would be correct. So it's important to teach these words to students at all levels. And it's helpful because if you think about words, phrases, expressions, they help with all the four skills. They help with reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So it helps us to improve all the four core skills. So it's really useful. So we'll be talking about how to do that. So eliciting. When you hear the word eliciting, what comes to mind? Please write it in the chat. So when we elicit, we basically try to get the information from the students because they already have some information, and if they know it, we want to know whether they know that word or not. And it's a good way to see, informally assess how much the students know. Oh, and just to let you know, the first half an hour, I will be presenting the information, and the second half hour will give you a chance to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer those. All right. Yes, so some of you are mentioning in the chat, so you bring out information, bring something out. Yes, that's right. You get it out of the students. And often A common technique for that is to use questions. That's very effective. So let's take a look. Why elicit? It certainly gets the students more engaged. They feel like more part of the lesson. It makes it more memorable for them because they have contributed something. And you, as a teacher, will have a chance to assess them informally. And then if you see that there's a need for adjustment, then you can adjust the lesson accordingly. You say, oh, yeah, they're getting it. So you can go faster, you can move on. You see, oh, I think they're not getting this. Let me just pause here and just explain further what this phrase means, so you can um, accommodate accordingly. You get the feedback from the students, as opposed to them just being passive learners. So we can really adjust the lesson to their needs. For example, this morning I was late. The bus left 5 minutes before I arrived at the bus stop. What happened? I went back to the previous slide on purpose. What happened? I blanked the bus. What's the word? The missing word. Blank. What would you say? Hope you did read ahead. I'm just gonna wait to see what you put in the chat. I blanked the bus. If I was late this morning, and if you said missed the bus, you are correct. Now, almost everybody would come up with this word missed, right? Because that's the word that it fits there. So we had to know to use the word miss. And we also figured out to use the past tense, like Chico. She right away. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's a she or he. My apologies, but you knew right away to put it in the past, missed, right? Because it was this morning. I was late, so was gives us the context. The bus left, so it's the past of leave. Arrived and happened. You see everything in the past. So all of you put this word in the past correctly, and you came up with the right word. So this is an example of eliciting. I elicited the information from you, and notice I put it in context. This is important, putting it in context. So I gave you a scenario or a situation, so you fully understood what was happening and what I needed to fill in that missing word. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing to remember. So it's not just the word itself, but how it's used. And we'll talk more about this uh, further on. So you can also use pictures to elicit. So here is an example of a mother and son going after the bus, probably getting ready for school. What happened? Again, looked like they missed the bus, or maybe they will catch the bus, depending on the mood of the bus driver. He's going to stop for the sentence. There's more than one possibility. It's not just the one answer sometimes. But the important thing is to give students a chance to come up with the idea. It could be the different methods, could be a role play. For example, let's say you are frightened. What are some of the words you would come up with if you were frightened? If you could put it in the chat, and what other methods can be used. Oh, we got more people from Argentina, Nigeria, Grenada. Welcome. Okay. So if you're frightened, you're scared, you're terrified. Yeah, those are all good words that you came up with, and these are what we call synonyms. So synonyms are words that have similar meaning And again, it's good to group them together instead of trying to go alphabetically. Because alphabetically, there's no context. Context is missing. Somebody said petrified. That's a really high level of being scared. Yes. You can mime it. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's right. You can just show the feeling and students have to guess the meaning. Good. You can show a picture or a frame from a movie, from a video, and ask to see what is the facial expression of the person or the body language, right? And you can tell if somebody is scared. You can play a sound as well. That would be another way. You can give the opposite. The opposite would be an antonym of scared. You can draw. It doesn't have to be a Picasso drawing, just to show that the person is scared, like raising the eyebrows, for example, is another way. Or we can also use realia, which is bringing in an item that the students would recognize. Like I could bring in like King Kong and then show it to the students and ask them how they feel. So there's different ways to do it. Important thing is not using the same method over and over again, just to vary your method because variety is the spice of life, right? Students like to be taught um, using different ways for once. And another reason is because of the different learning styles. Some people prefer to learn visually, visual learners. Some people like to hear things, they have an auditory preference. Some people like to do things with their hands, so it's the kinesthetic or tactile approach. And some people like to see it on paper, right? So they have a read and write preference. So some people like to read on paper or some on screen. So you want to provide different ways of input. Flashcards, yes, that's a good idea. Thank you, Anthea. So that's input. Now, translate or not to translate. This is the question: to be or not to be. Um, At the lower levels, translation, yes, it can be useful. But as you move up the levels, like intermediate, advanced level, there's less and less. And another thing why we prefer to do everything in English, like even a dictionary, I recommend for students to use an English dictionary because the first language could be different. You could have Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Portuguese students all in the same group. So their first language is not going to be helpful for the other students or for you as a teacher. You're not going to learn all those languages, obviously. So at lower levels, yes, it's helpful, but not at the higher levels. And then the CEFR, we need to grade your language accordingly. The CEFR, I don't know if you've heard of that, is the Common European Framework of Reference. Let me share my screen with you, and this will tell us the um, different levels. One second, let me just go there. Just a second. Yes, here it is. All right, so you've got the A, B, and C levels. So beginners should divide it between A1, A2, intermediate. They're capable of doing more getting away from the concrete things. They're starting to be able to process some abstract ideas. And at the C1, C2 level, they're able to fully function using abstract ideas. Right? So there's the progression. And a lot of the books refer to this level. If you're in Canada, for example, then they'll refer to the CLB, the Canadian Language Benchmark. So you just have to check to see what it is that the textbook uses or that the school prefers. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. There we go. And the context, so grade your language means simplify it to the level of the students. Don't try to use big words that they don't understand. Otherwise, well, they will not understand it, then they will stop paying attention. And then the context. It's important that you provide a simple context. Like, remember missing the bus, like getting ready for school. Everyone can relate to that. Don't try to overcomplicate things. Okay? Like if you say, "Oh, I went on a cruise," and you tell all the ports. I went to Rome and I went to Marseille, and the room was too tight. It's too much information, right? The students will get lost in that. You mentioned the different ports, right? And it's just easier just to keep it simple. For cruise, they might have never gone on a cruise. So it would be easier to say something. How do you set up your room if you visit your relatives, for example? Because we can relate visiting to relatives. You just need a bed and a chair to sit down, and that would be the setup of your room. All right, so the simpler the better. So let's take a look at vocab in context. So which of these examples is more likely to help student understand the meaning of miss the bus? Let's take a look. And I'd like you to write down your answer in the chat. A or B? I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And yes is less is more. Yeah, that's right. Scary music. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea from earlier. To show frighten. Okay. So for this question, everybody's saying A. That is correct because we have the situation is better explained for once. Like missed the bus. I arrived 2 minutes after it had left. Right. So which one was first? The arrival or the bus leaving? So we had left, simple past first, and then arrived. Yes, is second. Good. But the second one, why not B? First of all, it's quite short. It doesn't give us enough context. Another thing is it uses the word annoyed, which is a bigger word than the word missed. So if they don't understand the word missed, they're not likely to understand annoyed. So that would not be a good way to explain it because it would not help them. So all of you got it. Excellent job. Let's move on. There's the answer underlined for you. Well done. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't just teach the word itself. We try to focus on three things, M, F, P. So M stands for meaning, F for form, and P for pronunciation. So those pieces of information should also be included when you introduce a new word. And it's important to focus on accuracy and fluency. Which one should we focus on first? First is accuracy, right? It's important that it's accurate. Just like typing, you want to make sure that we hit the right keys on the keyboard. And then later on, we can focus on fluency. to be faster at saying those words, or if it comes to typing, you become a better typist. You type faster once you know where the keys are. All right. And a lot of times I see teachers focusing on meaning, but of course we also have to look at the form, such as if you look at a count, for example, dish, is that count or non-count? It is a countable noun because we can say dishes, we can put the S at the end. And we put an E because the last final sound is a sh sound. Right? So we can say dishes, so dishes, we have to put an ES. Things like that. And then the pronunciation, especially the SH, is can be troublesome for some students. And another thing that sometimes teachers forget to do is asking concept checking questions. So sometimes teachers, this is what they do. They present the words and then they ask, do you understand? Well, what are students likely to say? They'll say, yes, we do, because they don't want to be embarrassed. They're trying to please the teacher. So even if they don't understand it, they're likely to say yes. So that's not a good way to check to see if they've understood it. A better way would be to ask a question that tells us whether they have understood the meaning or not. So here is an example for you. I missed the bus. So let's take a look at the CCQs, the concept checking questions, to see which one would be the most appropriate. So I'd like you to choose one again, A, B, or C. And we know it's not A, as I just explained it to you. So you've got a choice between B and C, and everybody chose C. Well done. Because B, did you get to school on the bus? It's kind of a misguided question. It focuses on the bus. And C is better. Did you arrive on time? Because it will give the students a chance to say, no, we were late because we missed it, right? So that way we get an understanding. Yes, they do understand the word missed. All right. Did you get to school on the bus? Oh, sorry. It's B is underlined, but C is the correct answer. And as we mentioned, not A, because that doesn't check whether they've understood it or not. And then grading the language is also important when eliciting and concept checking. It means we need to bring it down to the level of the students. Otherwise, they will not understand it. So use only the language that they already know. And when you explain new language using unfamiliar words, they'll just lose track and it will be way, way over their head. So that's when you see this language grading means to simplify it to their level. So if it's a beginner's class, would it be better to say academy or school? And if you said school, you are correct, because academy, they would not understand it at that level. But if they get higher up, then you can say academy or organization, post-secondary institution. Then you can start using those higher level words as they progress. So here is again the CFR, as I mentioned. So the A1, beginners, A2, the higher level of beginners. It's called pre-int, pre-intermediate. B1 is the most common, this B1, B2, the intermediate and upper intermediate level. And once you get into the C level, then they're advanced proficient users. And that's usually the goal for them. And they don't really necessarily need to be like a native speaker, because that might be unrealistic for some of them, but often they aim for the C1 level. All right, so let's take a look at this one, language grading task. What level are the following? I'd like you to identify them and match them with the levels. So I've been to Paris 3 times. Is it A1, B1, or C1? My name is Fernando. I live in El Bonito. Again, identify the level and put it in the chat, please. And number 3, I'm not certain that you really understand this concept. So let's start with the simplest one. The simplest one would be number 2, the A1 level, because it uses simple structures. My name is, I live. Everything is in the present, short sentences. Yeah, good. So that's A1. How about the next one? If you said number 1, I have been to Paris, you are correct. That's a B1 level, because I have been uses higher level grammatical structure. What verb tense is that? I have been is the present perfect, and 3 times. Your time uses a count noun, to Paris instead of in. A lot of students tend to put in here, but again, the preposition use. Yeah, so we get into the intermediate level. And then the last one, I'm not certain that you really understand this concept. No, we get into the C, level C1. I'm not certain, the use of certain instead of sure. We have that, so we have that makes it a complex sentence. And concept, again, is a higher level word. So if you said B1, A1, C1, like Agata, you are correct. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. And then recording new vocab. So as we mentioned, you can use flashcards, word cards. Students can write it down in their notebook. I actually recommend that they get one of those notebooks. You know, at the dollar store, you can get one and you can just flip through it. And you can always have it with you, like while you're riding the bus, while you're waiting for an appointment at the doctor's office. You can just flip through them and review them. And on one side, I would tell them to put the word itself and all the other information on the back. So let's see what to include for each word. Here's an example about the word ghost. So we got the word itself, a. If you add a, the article, that means it's countable. And it's n, the part of speech is a noun. Here you have the pronunciation, if the students know the phonetic symbols, or they can write it down in their own way if they don't know the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. And then here's the meaning. So it's a spirit or a soul of a dead person. Other forms of the word. So going from a noun to an adjective, ghostly. It's like a ghost. A place which is believed to have ghosts is haunted. So haunted is a related word to ghost. It's an adjective. To hunt. Hunt is a regular verb. And then this is really important, the examples. And I always tell the students to write an example that is true. Because if you write down a sentence that is not true, the subconscious mind tends to just ignore it because you know it's not true. But yeah, I don't believe in ghosts. This would be a true sentence. And that will help them remember it. And notice this little drawing too. It also helps the visual learners to create that hook in the brain and connect the word ghost to that image. So this is an example of a vocab card. And surprisingly, in order to learn a new word, students need to be exposed to it 5 to 16 times. Some researchers say 7 to 10 times. So if you just see it once or twice, it's a new word. 2, 3 times, yeah, I've seen that word before. I think I know what it is. 4 or 5, yes, I know this word. I understand it. 6, 7 times they've seen it. Now they're able to produce it. So we wanted to go from the passive to active vocabulary because we want them to start using it in their speech and writing. I'm sorry, my cat wants to participate. All right. So that's why we need to expose the students to the same words several times. We need to recycle the vocabulary. And it's good for them to see it, to hear it, read it, so different ways as well. And here are some ways to recycle or reuse vocab. Word games, crossword puzzles, word searches, the I Spy, being matching, speaking and writing activities will be when it comes to the production level. And word games. So let's say we have 5 new words. So we look at the meaning. Okay, then I will tell you the meaning and you tell me the word. Now I can only say one word, of course, not the target word, but one word and tell me what that is. No, I can only show it to you, and you have to tell me which one of those 5 words I'm talking about. Right? So you can, that's just an example. And just a note at the end here that the previous webinars are also available on our YouTube channel. And if you have any other questions that we can answer for you, please send us a ticket to tutor support. And this time I'd like to open up the floor to a Q&A. I'll be happy to answer to your questions. And oh yeah, Hangman. Hangman is also good. And there's a version of Hangman that I like to use, and it's the snowman version. And the reason why I like it because instead of hanging somebody, the snowman actually melts if they don't get the word. But of course, if they get it, then the snowman is happy. So you can Google the snowman version of Hangman. All right, so feel free to ask any questions you may have in the chat. And at the end, there's also going to be a survey that I'll ask you to complete. It's a brief survey. I will put that in the chat for you. Okay, so let's see. Do we have any questions coming in? And while you're thinking about that, another thing I will tell you is TPR. You may have heard that term. Is total physical response is another way to teach new vocabulary. And that means the teacher doesn't give any instructions. They just show you. I am driving. As I'm driving, I have to stop. What am I doing? I'm waiting for the red light to turn. That would be TPR. Students, they just do what you show them to do without really any explanation. All right, Anthea asks, word cards, do you think that it would be better to keep it in an alphabetical order? If the students create their own, you can let them order it any way they want. Sometimes they keep it in the order as they learn them, because that helps them remember. Sometimes they group them together by topic, like travel, health, as you cover the topics. You can group them together. Alphabetical order is the least favored way because it doesn't help them remember the word that well. It only helps them to find it on the list quickly. But that's the least favorite way. But you can let them do it any way they wish. Thank you for that. I didn't quite understand why it should be C, because technically I could say, yes, I did arrive on time because I came by car. They would have to say because I missed the bus. I could say, yes, I did arrive because I came by car. They could say, I have to say I missed. You mean that, Asha, that previous slide that we were on? You're talking about that? Okay, let's go back to that. Okay, let me just go back to that slide. This one? This one? Yeah. This was the question. Okay. Did you arrive on time? And why? Yes. Because this will tell you that you missed a bus. It focuses on that, right? Whether you arrived on time. Yeah. Well, I guess it could be B too. Sometimes there's more than one question you can ask because this will tell you that, yeah, they didn't come. They didn't come on the bus. Yeah, could be that too. But for me, C would really get the idea that they were late, right? So this focuses on the idea of being late, and this focuses on the idea of not taking the bus, right? So they're both possible. Okay. Yes, yeah, Rebecca is also saying the same thing. So B, they might not understand what the word miss is and just identify the word bus. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. All right. Laura asks about the differences between eliciting and concept checking questions. Okay, that's a good question. Eliciting is when you want the students to come up with the idea that they already know. Whereas concept checking question is you just introduced a new word to them and you want to see if they have understood that new word. For example, you're teaching the word snow and you show a picture of snow to them and you ask them, is this snow? And the students will say yes. This is a way to do positive checking. And you can also show a picture of rain and you ask them, is this snow? Then they say no. That's a way to do negative checking. How about if you say, is it cold? They say yes. Does it fall from the sky? They say yes. So that's a yes and no question. What color is it? It's white. That's an open-ended, short answer question. You can ask, is it hot or is it cold? So then you have an either or question. Or does it snow in your country? You can ask a personalized questions. So all of these questions I just showed you, was this eliciting or concept checking questions? If you said concept checking, you are correct because I'm trying to understand to see if you know what the word snow is, right? But if I think you already know this word, I would ask you, can you give me an example of what could fall from the sky? And they will say rain or hail, and they might say snow. I want them to say snow. Then that's an example of eliciting because they already knew the word. I just got them to come up with it, right? So we just bring it to the conscious level because they already know this word, right? Does that make sense? Okay, and then we talked about using All right, my apologies. My something just happened to my computer. Are you guys still with me? Awesome. My apologies. I don't know what happened to my computer. Let's just get back to where we were. Okay. Let's go back. All right, can you guys still hear me? Okay, my apologies. All right. And there's another question. Which is more important, passive or active teaching? That's a good question. And of course, with active teaching, the you want the students to be more involved instead of them just being passive listeners, right? It's always good to get them involved because that way they know that they're getting more out of the lecture. All right, Deborah asks, thank you for that. Do I need to be fluent or have qualification in the student's native language to teach vocab effectively? No, no. I often don't even know the first language of the students. I don't speak Korean or I don't speak Vietnamese because that's the beauty of teaching ESL. We can do everything in English, right? And we just need to simplify the language for them, right? Yeah, no, you don't need to know their language. And if you have students from different backgrounds in your class, that's actually a good thing because then they have to use English with each other. And I actually ask them to use English before class, after class, during the breaks as well. And then I tell them I have my spies strategically located throughout the school to watch them. And they do use English most of the time. One time I was on the Toronto subway. It happened to be just behind my students after class, and they were still using English. I was so proud of them. All right. What else? Any other questions you have? Let me know. Okay. If no questions at the moment, I'm going to give you an example of how to use Realia in the classroom. So I'm gonna ask you to grab something yellow and don't tell us what it is. Just gonna ask you to describe it. For example, this item I have in my hand is made of plastic. It's yellow, obviously. It's made of plastic. And I use it if I want to emphasize something on paper. What do you think that is? And if you said highlighter, you would be correct. And then I would ask the students to do the same. Grab something yellow, describe it to us, and we have to guess what is. Yeah, Asha got it. Okay, yeah. A gold star. Okay, good guess. And if somebody else wants to describe their yellow, something that is yellow in the chat, then we'll have to try to guess it. And in the meantime, I'll answer Anthea's question. Would you consider music to be a good medium to use teaching English? Yes, to a certain extent, we do use songs, especially if the lyrics are easy to understand, um, because that really helps students a lot. And think about Celine Dion. When you see her in an interview, giving an interview, she's got quite a bit of an accent, right? French accent. But what about when she sings? She doesn't. She doesn't really have an accent, right? So it's even good for that. But especially understanding the lyrics. And if it's a song that they like or that they know, it's even better. And then you can remove some of the words and they have to guess what the words are. Okay, does anyone have anything to describe that is yellow and we have to guess what that is? Let me know. Okay, Next question in the meantime. Do you have any tips for teaching very young students? Now, the thing with very young ones is the activities have to be shorter, right? So you have to keep them shorter and you have to keep them really active, more involved, because they've got a lot of energy. So you have to get them out of their seats sometimes, get them to move around, interact with others. And you have to find out what it is that they're interested in, right? Um, if they like SpongeBob, for example, it would be better than trying to do something academic, right? So you want to use something that they enjoy learning more about. And yeah, keep them active, keep the activities short. Yeah. Same with teenagers. They go through material really fast, so you want to make sure you have extra activities on hand. Whereas with adults, you can just take your time more, and they like exploring the ideas deeper and discussing them and exploring them. Okay, here's a trivia question from Marinaz. What is something that is yellow, fruit, and cylindric? That's a nice word, cylindric. Is it a banana, Marinaz? Okay, it is a banana. Very good. And I've got a joke for you about that. Since we're talking about, we're on the topic of music, Beethoven, you know. One of the composers who actually went deaf during his lifetime. What was his favorite fruit? And some of you might guess it's banana, the Ninth Symphony. All right, that's just a joke. Okay, and it's something else. How vital is it to be able to categorize words like prepositions, determiners, and also remembering all these tenses? That's actually quite important, right? Like if you have the word into, you want to make sure that students know that is a preposition. Or I look forward to seeing you. Forward is a preposition. What about to? Is that an infinitive or is it a preposition? It is a preposition. That's why seeing is followed by a noun. So it's always good to identify the part of speech when you introduce a new word. Yeah, determiners like this and these. It's a demonstrative determiner. And this if it's singular, these if it's plural. And that also makes the noun plural. The verb tenses, absolutely, it is important. But the old way of teaching focused on grammar a lot. There was a lot of focus on grammar. So students could explain the grammar really well, but they could not communicate. So that was the issue. We tried to get away from teaching too much grammar and focus more on vocab and other useful skills to give students a chance to be able to um, communicate and to express their messages so that they can be understood in a meaningful way. Yeah, good question. So we just let grammar naturally emerge. Like I showed you, we left the house, we missed the bus. Which verb tense? It's the simple past in that case that naturally emerged. The bus had left and we arrived. Now we have the past perfect as well. So you can also mention that. You are welcome. Okay, Mike asked, can we use other vocab books like OPD with course book? Yes, yeah. Often the school will give you the textbooks to use, and you can always supplement with other books. Sometimes the school will ask you to choose the book for your students. Then you have a lot of freedom then. And if you're planning to go overseas, I recommend that you take a few good books with you. One for grammar for sure, and then you can use a picture dictionary. I really like using picture dictionaries. and a few other books, because don't just think, oh, I'll find it on the internet. A, there might not be a good internet connection. B, you might not be able to print or find it or share the screen. So always just have a few go-to books that you take with you or have in your collection, even if you teach locally. Yeah. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Let me know. And then I'm also going to put the link in the chat about the short survey that we would like you to do. If you could, that would be much appreciated. And in the meantime, let's see if you have any other questions. Okay, so I'll share this here, but I'll also put it in the chat for you. Okay. All right, and then Anthea asked, where can we find additional resources explaining grammar really simply, especially for someone who's entering a teaching career for the first time? Okay. The one that I like to use is grammar.org, and the reason why I like it because it does a good job explaining things in a simple way. I will show it to you in a second. 1 second. Okay. I'm just going to put the link in the chat first for SurveyMonkey. Okay. There's the link, so you can just click on that to complete the survey. And then grammar.org, I'll show you how that works. Let me just bring it up. And the reason why I like it because it's got explanations as well as answers, and it tells the students right away whether they are right or wrong. So they get immediate feedback on that. Okay. Again, I'll put this in the chat for you if you want to look it up later. Here you go. And let me share it with you. All right, so here it is, englishgrammar.org. And it gives you the explanation, like articles, for example, can be troublesome, passive voice, verb tenses. And you can go through the lessons and then you can do the practice. Who is, for example, who is, what's the missing word? Blank girl over there with Mike. And if you said the, oh, that's not what I wanted. Let me do it this way. I usually do a search here in the search bar. And then when I click on art, yeah, this is the one I want to show you. There is blank fly in my soup. So fly, we would say fly. And here's the one I want to show you. Notice it tells you right away that we are correct. But if I were to choose the wrong answer, can you lend me pen? Let's say I put no article. It just tells you that it's wrong. But sometimes it gives you the explanation as well, why we need a. So I really like this website. And another reason why I like it, because at the end, it's got all the answers. So you can review it with the students. A fly, a pen. And then what do you notice? When is it a? If you have fly, pen, a woman, an hour, what is common among these nouns that follow the indefinite article? Notice they're all countable. Okay. So things like that. But if it's hair, she has curly hair, it has no article because hair is non-count. You're not going to count how many pieces of hair you have, right? So this is one that I recommend. Another one that I like using is IELTS Up, and that also has good simple explanations. Okay, were you guys able to see that I shared with you? Okay, and I'll share the other one too then. And IELTS Up is great because it works with IELTS preparation as well to get students ready for that exam that is quite popular. And let me share this with you. Just a second. Okay. For example, I will share with you vocab. Yes, so if you come to this website, it's got all the skills at the top. And since we're talking about vocab, let's go to speaking vocab. And then these are the most common topics that you'll encounter during exam, but it's not just for exam preparation because these things we talk about anyway, like traveling. And then it gives you the words that are related to travel, like accommodation, all-inclusive holiday, a check-in desk, guided tour, picturesque village. That's a nice adjective right there. A tourist trap, or go on a safari. And then once students learn those words, instead of going to the next topic, let's just go to the actual, yes, here's the sample. So here's a sample talking about travel and holiday, and I like it because it puts it in context. And if you scroll your mouse over it, it will give you the explanation. Yeah. Like tourist trap, places with many tourists. And again, it puts it in context. And then it gives you a nice way to put it in context. All right, so I'll just stop sharing, but it's got grammar as well. This is a good website, IELTS Up. All right, so that's all the time we had for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Once again, if you could complete the brief survey, we would appreciate that. I'll put that in the chat again for you. And we hope you enjoy teaching vocabulary. Thank you so much and happy teaching, everybody. Take care.